Hello, 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 everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, people. Happy Sunday, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your Sunday morning. And we're back with our National Park Series, part 23 of our National Park Series. And today we're here in Astoria, Oregon here today, as we're going to be covering our 23rd park in the series, Olympic National Park in Northwest Washington. So I hope you guys are doing well here today on this Sunday morning. I hope you guys got some good sleep. And we're going to be exploring this absolutely gorgeous national park here in Washington State. There's tons of stuff in this park. Rainforest, mountains, stunning coastline. There's just a lot to offer here today at the national park. So that is what we're going to be doing here today. We'll explore pretty much all of the major sections here at the park. So that is what we're doing here this morning. So I hope you're all doing well. So before we get started, of course, so that is what we're doing this morning, of course. So before we get started, I want to say hello to everyone in the chat. Hello to all the workers and stuff in chat. I hope you're all doing well this morning. So that is where we're going to do today. So here's what our flight plan is going to look like this morning, and what our flight plan will be looking like. So we'll put up our nav map here. So I did make an adjustment to the flight plan from the morning's announcements. I forgot to change the flight plan. We were supposed to go to Ruby Beach, so I made a bit of an alteration. So our flight plan will start here in Astoria, and Astoria Regional. We'll fly over Astoria itself. Then from Astoria, we'll make our way over to our first stop here in Sanderson Airport, just outside of the national park. Then from there, we'll explore Olympic National Park. We'll do some landings, of course. We'll do a bush landing at the top of Mount Olympus, right here. We'll also do a bush landing at Hurricane Ridge ski area. We'll take a flight from there. We'll go to Hurricane Ridge and we'll make a landing up the top of the ridge in Hurricane Hill. Then from there, we'll make our way through into Glens Canyon Dam. And then, of course, we'll make our way over to Lake Crescent. So we'll make our way to Lake Crescent. We'll fly over here for a bit. We can see Port Angeles as well. Then we're going to go make a bush landing here at the Hoh Rainforest area. We'll make a landing here. And then from there, we'll make our way over to Ruby Beach, and we'll do a beachside landing at Ruby Beach. And then from there, we'll follow the coastline into our last stop. I changed it from Port Angeles to Quilliate because, well, that's going to be our last stop. I wanted to do some beachside exploration, so that's what we're doing here today. Hey, Super Typhon, good to see you. Nice to see you on the ground, my dude. So we got quite a bit of a flight to go here today. In the Avro Pits, I wonder how that's going to do in the bush landings. If I'm being honest, man, probably not very well. So we're just going to go ahead and adjust everything, turn everything on. And we got this thing pretty much started. Nice. You're a Tab Dragon. Yeah, because you have Standard Edition, Super Typhon. And this plane is not a Standard Edition plane. It's actually a Premium Deluxe aircraft. But it's one of the best planes you can get, though. For no matter what edition is this thing. It's like a must-have plane. So we'll get to Olympic National Park. We'll be cruising around 115 knots to our first stop here at Sanderson Airport. I'm going to go ahead and get the flight plan worked. I'll just do it for the first leg, as we're going to be taxiing to our first stop. So we'll do that. First leg flight plan is going to take us, we'll cruise around 2,500 feet. So I'll set the altitude to 2,500 feet. Yeah, it's still pretty funny though, it's tail dragging citation. So lots of stuff to go on here today. We got plenty to talk about. So I hope you guys are excited here today. So here we go. So here we go. And okay, we're ready to go. And we're off. Nav mode, and we're going to go ahead. Okay, here we go. So we're going to fly over Astoria for a bit. Just briefly, I want to cover a bit about Astoria as we fly over this place. Now, if you guys have never heard of Astoria, Oregon, this place right here is well known for the Columbia River Maritime Museum. What if I told you this place was also very popular as a filming location for many films back in the 80s and 90s? In fact, it's the most famous movie featured in Astoria is the 1985 film The Goonies, which was filmed right in the city. But there have been other movies that have been filmed here. Both Free Willy movies, TMNT 3, The Ring 2, Short Circuit, and Black Stallion have all been filmed here in Astoria. So here it is, guys. We got a really neat picture. Here's Astoria, and there's also the famous bridge here in the city. The bridge in particular in question is the Astoria-Megler Bridge, which was opened back in 1966. And in fact, it is the longest continuous truss bridge in North America, and it's the second longest truss bridge globally. Which is pretty impressive that this is still one of the only one longest is the one in Nagasaki, the Ikitsuki Bridge in Nagasaki. So pretty cool little bridge, but it was also where the Lewis and Clark expedition actually stopped. This was their final stop in the expedition at Fort Clatsop, which is where actually the expedition ended. Which is just southwest of the city nowadays. So that's just a little bit of cover about Astoria for a bit. Little Astoria. So we'll start covering the so we'll climb up to 2,500 feet. So we'll start talking about Olympic National Park shortly. So we'll get up to here at 2,500 feet. But beautiful morning here today in Oregon and Washington State. Absolutely beautiful morning, guys. So let's go ahead and talk about our national park here today. So let's talk about Olympic National Park here in Washington State. Olympic National Park is located in the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State with four main regions: the Pacific coastline, alpine areas, the west side temperate rainforest, and the forests of the drier east side. There are just three distinct ecosystems: subalpine forest, wildflower meadow, temperate forest, and the Pacific coast. Now, this park was originally designated by Theodore Roosevelt as Mount Olympus National Monument in 1909. However, it was redesignated as a national park by FDR in 1938. And then in 1976, Olympic National Park became a UNESCO International Biosphere Reserve, and later, just 5 years later, a World Heritage Site. It's the in this area right here is the largest wilderness area in the state of Washington. And it's about 25th among all national parks and visitors. Over 3.7 million visitors visited in 2024, making it 25th of the 63 national parks in the United States. But yeah, Olympic is definitely one of the most gorgeous and underrated parks in the country. I know Rainier gets a lot of the visitors. It makes sense. Rainier is the closest to Seattle, but if you ever get the chance to make the trip up to Olympic, it's definitely well worth it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely gorgeous park. So a bit about the natural and geological history of this park. The coastal, there's a couple of things important. The coastal area of this park is rugged sandy beach along with adjacent forest. It is around 60 miles long, but just a few miles wide, with native communities of the mouths of the two rivers of the Hoh River and the Quileute River, of the two native peoples of the Hoh and Quileute, respectively. The beach has ongoing unbroken stretches of wilderness ranging from 10 to 20 miles, and while others were primarily sand, others were covered with heavy rock and boulders, which hinder a lot of foot travel as a result. However, the coastal strip is still more accessible than the interior of the Olympics due to difficult terrain. And the most popular piece of coastal strip is the 9-mile Ozette Loop, which is the most popular coastal area here in the park. But we're not going to be visiting these areas today. We're mainly going to visit Ruby Beach and all that. So we're not going to be visiting the more popular areas of beach. Then, of course, within the center of the national park, rise the Olympic Mountains, whose sides and ridges are topped with massive ancient glaciers. The mountains here are themselves a product of accretion wedge relating to the plate of the Juan de Fuca plate. And a lot of it is made of a melange of basaltic and sedimentary rock. And the western half is dominated by the peak of Mount Olympus, which is actually the tallest peak in the park, at 7,900 feet high. in this area receives tons of snow, and as a result, it has the greatest glaciation of any non-volcanic peak in the contiguous 48. Then lastly, of course, the western side of the park is mantled by temperate rainforest, including the Hoh rainforest and the Quinault rainforest, which receive precipitation of 12 feet a year, which makes it technically the wettest area in the continental United States. Now, compare that to the tropical rainforest and most other temperate rainforests. The rainforests here in the Northwest are dominated by coniferous trees, Sitka spruce, western hemlock, and western red cedar, while mosses cover the bark of those trees. But yeah, 3 really big and really interesting geological sites here at the park. Oh man, a CTD? Oh, that stinks, Typhon. I hope we get back. Hope next time it won't happen again. Keep our fingers crossed as we fly our way through Olympic National Park. You know, this would have been a great day to take the X-Cub, because considering we're in Washington. But then again, I'll probably saving that up for our next national park. But yeah, the scenery here is crazy, and this part of Oregon is really scenic. This part of Washington and northern Oregon is really scenic. The coastlines are very, very scenic up here. So, definitely some pretty cool stuff. So, I do want to recap a few things for sports. For our game day flight, well, which was the Hanshin Tigers and the Yomiuri Giants of Japanese baseball. Well, it turns out not only did they play yesterday, but they also managed to play early in the morning today because, you know, Japan's time zone differences. It turns out that the Hanshin Giants have actually won the series 2-1 in this 3-game series against the Yomiuri Giants. So they won the series, and they won the last game today 12-6. Which is pretty big if I say so myself. So that was pretty important. And then, of course, the Japanese team, the Carp, have actually swept the Chonichi Dragons. They beat them 1-0. So big win, though, for the team, of course. And apparently the Tigers scored 7 runs in the last 2 innings to take it. And it was the Giants' first opening series lose their opening series for the first time in 14 years. So pretty big stuff, though, for Japanese baseball, though. In terms of other sports, the college basketball season's continuing, and it turns out we already got the first 2 teams in the Final Four yesterday. As congrats to the Illinois Fighting Illini and the Arizona Wildcats for making the Final Four. It would be Illinois' first Final Four appearance since 2005. While for the Wildcats, of course, Arizona once again has made it to another Final Four appearance, their first since 2001. So, pretty impressive stuff, though, for the men's basketball as well. And now we have Michigan, Tennessee, and Duke, UConn. I'm hoping Tennessee beats Michigan, and I hope Duke beats UConn. But should be interesting set of Final Four. Where am I at? Good question. You could spawn in at WA16 is You can spawn at Whiskey Alpha 16. It's technically ahead of me, but I'll be getting to that region pretty soon. It says overlay even work. Let me see this overlay. Okay, you're behind me. Okay. Oh, I see you right there. Okay, I see you now, Super Typhon. You're behind me, okay? I see you. So, there's Super Typhon behind me. So, we'll talk a bit more about the national park as we get closer. In terms of ecology, at least for this national park here in Olympic, Olympic National Park's ecology there's 5 different classifications: alpine meadows, alpine tundra, conifer forest, and more. Because the park sits on an isolated peninsula with a high mountain ridge divided from land from the south, it's developed some unique endemic plant and animal species, such as the Olympic marmot, which only occurs here in this part of Washington, Piper's bellflower, which is native to the mountains here, and Fleet's violet are all endemic here to this national park. The southwest coastline of the peninsula is also the northernmost non-glaciated region of the Pacific coast. As a result, it serves as refuge from which plants colonize glacial regions to the north, and the park also provides habitat for many species, like the Roosevelt elk, that are only native here in the Pacific Northwest coast. As a result, scientists declared it a biological reserve and studied its unique species. The park is also home to a sizable population of black bears and black-tailed deer, as well as a noteworthy cougar population of 150 cougars. Of course, mountain goats were once accidentally introduced into the park in the 1920s, so they managed to control the mountain goat population. So pretty cool stuff, though. There's plenty of unique ecology here in the park, and there's about 366,000 acres of old-growth forest in the park. Basically ones that are never cut down or anything like that. So pretty cool when we get here. No worries, you'll upgrade eventually. It takes a bit of time. So in terms of the human history of the park and Olympic National Park, the human history of this park, before the influx of European settlers, Olympic's human population consisted of Native Americans whose use of the peninsula was thought to consist mainly of fishing and hunting. However, recent views of the record, coupled with systematic archaeological surveys, suggest that the mountains are pointing to a much more extensive travel use, especially with the subalpine meadows that seem formerly to be the case. Most, if not all, Pacific Northwest indigenous cultures were adversely affected by European diseases, often decimated as they lacked immunity to it and resistance to it, and other factors, well before ethnographers, business operations, and settlers arrived in the region. So what they saw and recorded was a much reduced native culture base compared to other places. And of course, they found a large number of cultural sites identified in the Olympic Mountains belonging to native people. When settlers did appear in this region, extractive industry in extractive industry in the Pacific Northwest was on the rise, particularly that of timber, which began to heavily happen in the 19th and early 20th centuries. Of course, public dissent against logging began hold in the 1920s when people got their first glimpses of the clear-cut hillsides. This period saw an explosion of people's interest in the outdoors, and with the growing use of the automobile, people took turn in places that were previously remote, such as the Olympic Peninsula. The full record of the proposal for a new park in this area began with the expeditions of well-known figures, Lieutenant Joseph P. O'Neill and Judge James Wickersham in the 1890s, and these notables met in the Olympic wilderness while exploring and combined their political efforts to have the area placed under some protected status. And eventually, the first set of it happened in 1897 under President Grover Cleveland to create Olympic Forest Reserve, which later became 10 years later as Olympic National Forest in 1907. Of course, after many other unsuccessful efforts to protect the area, Theodore Roosevelt created Mount Olympus National Monument in 1909, primarily to protect the subalpine calving grounds and summer range of the Roosevelt elk herds native to the area. And of course, afterwards, it became to upgrade it in 1938 as a national park, as public desire for preservation of this area grew even more. And the park expanded in 1953 to around by 47,000 acres to include the Pacific coastline between the Queets and Hoh rivers. Even though it was a national park, illegal logging continued in the park, and political battles continued to this day over this incredibly valuable timber contained within the park. Of course, they built Olympic National Wilderness in 1988 within Olympic Park, and it was renamed in 2017 to Daniel J. Evans Wilderness to honor Governor and U.S. Senator Daniel J. Evans, who co-sponsored the legislation in 1988. So that's going to be about the human history of the park, and that covers a bit about the human history here of Olympic National Park. We'll be getting to So, we'll be doing several bush lanes here today. We'll be doing bush lanes at Mount Olympus, Hurricane Ridge. We'll make a bush landing at Hoh Rainforest, and we'll make a bush landing here at Ruby Beach. So we'll be doing quite a few lanes here today. So we got a couple more slides to cover. We'll do these in the next slides and stuff. So yeah, for next week, I decided for next week, so these are the last week of streams. Next week will be the last week of streams before I head out of town in Europe. So next Friday will be in northern France. We'll be going from northern France. Here's a bit of the flight plan, what it'll be looking like. So here's what our flight plan is going to look like. Oh, not here, right here. So here's our flight plan for next week's game day flight. We will be in northern France. For this one, we're going to be the Derby du Nord, which is it's the Northern French Derby between Lille and Lens. RC Lens versus LOSC Lille. We'll be in northern France. We'll go visit Mount Saint Michel. We'll go into Omaha Beach in the American Cemetery of Normandy. We'll go here, visit the Normandy Cemetery, and we'll be flying through. We'll fly through the Normandy beaches, of course. Then we'll visit Le Havre, the major port city in northern France, Rouen. Then we're going to go Amiens, and then finally from Amiens we'll make our way over to Lens and Lille. So that's going to be our flight plan. Northern France is going to be where we're going to be our next game day flight. And we're going to cover between two very important sites in France this season. Lens is second in the French league, and of course Lille is not that far behind. And Lille's not even that far behind. And Lille is not very far behind at fifth. But yet Lens is just one game back from Paris Saint-Germain. So they could still win, but it's going to be very difficult as it's against PSG. But should be a lot of fun. So we'll be continuing here. We're about to head near Olympia, which is Washington State capital, by the way, is to our northeast. Is our capital state forest. And it's because it's right near Olympia, Washington, which is the state capital of the U.S. state of Washington. So we got some pretty cool stuff going on. So we'll be getting near here soon. So we're going to cover some bit more slides, obviously. So we got a couple more slides to cover. So in terms of recreation here at the park, there are several roads in the park, but none that penetrate into the interior. The park features a series of network of hiking trails, although the size and remoteness mean that it would take usually more than a weekend to get to the high country in the interior. The sites are in the rainforest with plants run wild and dozens of huge green are well worth the possibility of rain sometime during the trip. Although July, August, and September frequently have long dry spells. So those are probably the best times to hike into the interior. An unusual feature of the national park is an opportunity to do backpacking along the beach. The length of the coastline is sufficient for multiple day trips, with the entire day spent walking around the beach. Although idyllic compared to walking toiling up the mountainside, one must be aware of the tide. At the narrowest parts of the beaches, the high tide washes up to the cliffs behind, blocking passages. Several promontories also must be struggled through over with a combination of muddy steep trails and fixed ropes. Now, during the wintertime, the viewpoint known as Hurricane Ridge offers numerous winter sports activities. The Hurricane Ridge River Sports Club operates Hurricane Ridge Ski and Snowboard Area, which are ski lessons, rentals, and inexpensive lift tickets. So, yes, there is a bit about for skiing, of course. And there's a large amount of backcountry terrain that's accessible for skiers, snowboarders, and other backcountry travelers when the Hurricane Ridge Road is open. There's also rafting at the Elwood Ho rivers, and boating is quite common in several of the lakes at the park. And there's even fishing allowed here too, though they have it. And it's not required to have a fishing license to fish at the park. However, you can fish for bull trout or dolly varden trout. Now, of course, the views of Olympic National Park can be seen from Hurricane Ridge viewpoint. So we're going to be landing Hurricane Ridge. It takes a bit of the sightseeing here too. So pretty cool stuff. Plenty of recreation here in the park. And of course, our last slide for the national park is going to be the Elwood Restoration Project. And that's going to be one of our land. We're going to be seeing it too. So this project is the second largest ecosystem restoration project in the history of the National Park Service after the Everglades. It consisted of removing the 210-foot Klein's Canyon Dam and draining its reservoir Lake Mills and removing the 108-foot Elwood Dam from the Elwood River. Upon removal, the park would revegetate the slopes and river bottoms to prevent erosion and speed up the ecological recovery. And the main purpose of this restoration project was to restore the stocks, the anadromous stocks of Pacific salmon and steelhead to the Elwood River, which had been denied the upper 65 miles of river habitat for over 90 years by these dams. And the removal of these dams were completed back in 2014. So they've now managed to rebuild this area back. So we'll be seeing that on our trip as well. So really cool stuff. And that completes our final, our last slide talking about the history of this national park. So we're getting very close to our first stop of the day. So we should begin here very soon. So let's see who's following along with us. I think Typhon's still with us. Yep, he's still behind us, of course. Plenty of people here today here in Olympic National Park. So we're getting very close to the U.S. state of Washington. So we're getting very close to our first stop. So yeah, that pretty much covers our first part of the legs, of course. we're getting pretty close here, but absolutely gorgeous. We can see Olympic National Park. Straight ahead of us is Olympic National Park. Oh, this is going to be an absolutely gorgeous park, guys. I'm very excited for the park. So we'll be making here very soon as well. So there's our first stop of the day. So we'll get here very soon. So we'll get here very soon. So we're going to go ahead and take off our autopilot, and we're going to make our landing here very soon. So here it is, our first stop. But yes, I'm looking forward to my trip, though. I'm going to be excited to visit Europe again. I'm very excited to finally get to Europe and visit some of the historic cities in the Mediterranean. I'm looking forward to visiting Barcelona, and I'm also very, very interested in visiting Rome. Toulon would be pretty interesting to see. Florence and Pisa would be really beautiful to see too. So. 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 Here we go. So we're going to stop here for just a bit. If anyone wants to join on in, we're in the Southeast Asia server. we have a raid from the Real Lord Blackheart with 6 viewers. Good to see you, my dude. I hope you've had a great stream here, Lord Blackheart. We just made our very first stop here at KUIL September Hotel November. We're here at Sanderson Airport for our first stop. We're heading to Olympic National Park today on our National Park series. So that is what we're doing here this morning. So I hope you're all having a great day. If you guys don't know who I am, I'm FiberStrike95. I've been doing Fight Sim streams since 2021. I've done many adventures across the globe. So I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for the shout out, Typhon. Definitely check out the Real Lord Blackheart stream. Flight Sim was playing up on me, so you had to walk the dog. Hey, no worries, my dude. I know sometimes the sim doesn't exactly behave for people. But thank you so much for bringing you guys here. So we're going to get ready for our second and last leg of the trip. But it's going to be a pretty good one, guys. We're going to be making our way over to Olympic National Park. So we're going to go ahead and get ready for leg number 2. Before we do that, though, we're gonna delete that flight plan. We're not going to need that anymore. Just for the first leg. So for the first leg, for the first part, we're going to look at my nav map here and see how much of an elevation. We're going to climb it to 7,000 feet for the next leg. 7,000 feet. And our heading's going to be 325 degrees to start. 325. Okay, here we go. Nice thing about flying a bushcraft is, and the reason we take these bush planes is simple. It's because, well, we're going to climb at 800 feet a minute. So we're going to put that into the mix. So about Olympic National Park, and one of the really cool things about this park, for guys who just enter here for the first time, one of the really cool things about Olympic Park and what sets it apart from some of the other U.S. national parks is the 4 major regions. It has a stunning rugged Pacific coast, the alpine areas at the top of the peaks, the temperate rainforests in the west, and the drier normal forests on the east side. This was actually a national park back in 1938 by FDR. It was originally designated as a national monument by Theodore Roosevelt in 1909. And it's ranked 25th of all U.S. national parks with 3.7 million visitors in 2024. So that is kind of the details of this park for those who've been here. So let me show you some of the hiking stuff in this national park. There's plenty of things for hikers to do. And if you look at the park, it's definitely number 8 in the all trail site for the best trails of the park. There's been several pretty big ones. But I mainly want to show you some bit of some of the most notable trails. And I'm just going to show you briefly some of the most notable trails in the park, just briefly. I want to show you guys those trails. So here's some of the more notable trails at the park. The top trail in the park, according to visitors at this site, is Mount Storm King, which is one of the most popular trails here at Lake Crescent. It's very steep for the first 2 miles, and then of course the last fourth is rocky trips. However, if you get up here, you are treated with an absolutely incredible view, though, of this. This is kind of your view at the top of the trail at Mount Storm King. Um, Absolutely gorgeous views though. Gorgeous view though, but it's very steep, so you do need to be careful when flying at this train. Then another one that's popular is Hurricane Hill. That's at Hurricane Ridge. This is where you find some of the really cool views here. Thankfully, it's not nearly as difficult as the last one. It's a bit more moderate. But you can see some of the absolute crazy views from Hurricane Ridge. And we'll land at Hurricane Hill, so we'll get a good view of here. But yeah, you have some absolutely incredible views at the park. So I made it more overcast here. We're about to arrive here at the park. Then Merrymere Falls is in that same area. But you have the really cool falls through a lot. This is an easy trail, only 1.8 miles, but you get through Merrymere Falls. We have some really beautiful lakes and streams and stuff all over. Some really beautiful stuff here. But of course, you like beaches. You got one here in Rialto Beach, and you guys can see where the beach life is like. So that's kind of what the coastline of this area looks like. Very different from the beaches you find like in Florida and stuff, where it's much more rugged. It's got rocks and stuff. But it's still really scenic, though. It's still cool. And Ruby Beach is kind of a similar boat is Ruby Beach, which is pretty easy scenic stroll. And that's what Ruby Beach is like. Now this one's a lot more rocky. This is a rocky beach with a lot more rocks and stuff all over it. So you can see how much more rocky this beach is. It's very, very different from a lot of the beaches you all know of. So, and finally, the last trail I want to show you guys after you guys look at these pictures is the Hall Mosses Trail, and that's in Ho National Forest. And this one is where this park, this is where you can find the temperate rainforest. It's all over this park. It's really scenic, though. Really scenic area of the park. Really cool, though. You get to walk through all the mosses and the temperate rainforest. So if you want to link to more trails in the park and all that, let me post here in the chat for all you guys. I also put a link up at the top. It's the National Park Service's guide to all the national parks from the National Park Service. So you guys are more than welcome to click that one too. So this here, of course, we're about to arrive into the national park itself. I did change the weather to be more overcast today to simulate the weather that happens here in Olympic. I still put the clouds pretty high up because, of course, I still want you guys to see the scenery, but I want to change the weather a little bit. So this here's Lake Cushman. And yeah, we're finally getting into the heart of this national park. Holy heck, this is a gorgeous park. Oh, Olympic, man. This is just gorgeous park. I'm already salivating over this. So if you guys want to join in, I'm on the Southeast Asian server. So here's the server. ! Server. and exclamation point route will be into Kilo Uniform India Lima, right near Rialto Beach. So we're gonna actually come to 8,000 feet. So our first waypoint for this national park is going to take us to Mount Olympus, of course. This is the tallest peak at the park, 7,900 feet above sea level. It's the tallest, most prominent mountain in the national park. Located in the Olympic Peninsula, it's the central feature of the park, of course, being the highest summit of the Olympic Mountains. However, despite being the highest peak, the Mount Constance and the Brothers are actually more visible from the Seattle metro area. With notable local relief, it ascends over 2,100 meters from the elevation of the Hoh River, and it's actually the fifth most prominent mountain in the state of Washington. Also pretty unique about this mountain, and what separates it from some of the other mountains here, is the fact, due to the fact it gets so much winter snowfall, Mount Olympus supports large glaciers despite its modest elevation, including Blue, Hoh, Hughes, Jeffers, Hubert, and White. The longest which is the Hoh Glacier, around 3 miles long, making it the area with the most amount of glacier in the continental 48 states. So yes, there's lots of glaciers here in the park. Of course, in 1890, an expedition led by U.S. officer Joseph P. O'Neill reached the summit of what is today presumed to be the Southern Peak, aka Athena. It is actually the southern peak of Mount Olympus. But it's a really cool mountain. We're gonna see if we can try and make a landing. You know, here's the crazy thing. My scenery's all mediums as well. I put all my scenery and stuff on mediums. But this is still gorgeous, though. The mountain peaks here are absolutely crazy here. The scenery is absolutely stunning. Look at the state of this. Oh, Olympic National Park. You're an absolutely gorgeous park. Actually, no, it's 9,000 feet. One second. It's 9,000 feet above sea level. So we'll rise about 9,000 feet so we can see the mountainside. But man, this is just crazy. And if you look to our right, we can see some of the mountain peaks of North Cascades National Park in the background. You guys know that's the third national park here in Washington. It's far and away the least visited park in the state. However, don't let that fool you. North Cascades is absolutely gorgeous. Looking forward to visiting that park in the future. So, and if you look, guys, to your southwest, you guys all know what this national park is. That's Mount Rainier. Not only is it a very famous area, it is also Washington's most visited national park. And it was one of the first national parks we actually did in the series, by the way. Too. So, absolutely incredible scenery here this morning. So, we'll be making our way to Mount Olympus. There's multiple peaks, but we'll see if we can make a landing here in Mount Olympus. I don't expect the landing to be good, guys. I know. But the point of me landing the peak isn't just because it's fun stupid, but it's because this is not going to be taken nearly as seriously, because I want to explore you guys in the national park. If this is perfect fun, I wouldn't be doing it, but I wanted to make things fun and interesting, and of course I would never do this in real life. That would be stupid. Unbelievably stupid. I just want to have some bit of enjoyment. But the scenery is absolutely incredible today. So we'll be climbing up here soon. So we'll be heading here soon. We'll turn left and head over to Mount Olympus. So we'll be turning direction 283. So we'll head on this, and we can see Mount Olympus to our left. See that tall peak in the center in front of us? That is Mount Olympus. So that is where we're going to go. Mount Olympus is straight ahead of us. It's the tallest peak. You're basically in the Formula F1 car. Yep, it makes sense. Basically, this is dedicated for air racing and acrobatics. But, I mean... So we'll be going through all this as well. So we'll be making it over to Olympus soon. So you can see some of the really cool scenery down in the west. We're not far from the rainforest and all that. All that's temperate rainforest. So we'll try and make a landing at the peak somewhere if there's a good, safe place we can land. So, definitely a lot of really cool stuff, though, of course. So, here we go, guys. We're about to reach Mount Olympus, so we'll take it. So, one of the really cool things, though, about Olympic, if you look at the National Park website I posted, it has everything you need to know about planning your visits and stuff. So you can see all the different activities. You can do boating, of course, at Lake Crescent. Great place for boating, of course. It's a really good hiking national park. There's some absolutely gorgeous hiking trails all over the park. And with a lot of different variety of scenery. Makes it a great hiking park. And yes, you can even do the tide pools and stuff. And you can see a lot of the intertidal life at the park. So, beautiful park though. It gets to see some absolutely gorgeous views. Imagine being at the valley of the park. So, we'll make up here, land Olympus, and we'll see what's the view from up here. Then we're going to head our way over to Hurricane Ridge. Beautiful Mount Olympus. Yes, it's of course. Don't confuse this Mount Olympus for the one in Greece, because the one in Greece is much taller. Because Mount Olympus in Greece is the literal tallest mountain in Greece, and it's around over 9,500 feet high. So yeah, just checking over the scenery and stuff here. So we can see the coastline. We'll visit the coastline last, but I mean, just look at the scenery. We can see some of the glaciers up here too. So of course, if you see ahead of us, we can see several of the glaciers here at Mount Olympus. You can see all the many different glaciers here. So this is Mount Olympus. So you can see some of the glaciers. They're like some of the glaciers are huge in this park. I didn't think the glaciers here would be as large as they are. Huge amount of glaciers here in Mount Olympus. And there's, I believe, Hoh Glacier. Look how far that just goes down the mountain. Absolutely crazy. And here's the peaks, guys. So this is the peaks of Mount Olympus. We'll turn off our autopilot here. Off. And I think we'll land here into the middle peak. of Mount Olympus. So. Also, guys, I do have a future series planned. So, if you guys don't know, there is a DC3 going around the world right now. The Spear of Douglas. Which, if you guys remember back in the OGs, remember the Britling DC3 around the world trip? Well, we did that one with the Britling DC3. I was thinking about doing that one again for 2027. It would be the 10th anniversary of the trip. So here we go again. I guess we'll land. Not the worst land in the world, but we made it up here to Mount Olympus. So let's. Huh, here we go, guys. So this is what Mount Olympus looks like. I know it isn't safe, but this is Mount Olympus from its south peak. This is from the middle peak. So you can see all the different landmarks of Washington from here. I can see Rainier in the background, even from here. Sticks out like a sore thumb, even from here. But man, these views are just epic. This is just crazy. Look at the views from up here. See, this is also why I do this sort of stuff too. Because with the new sim, you can walk out and all that. That's also why I've been doing this too. So you guys think it's weird, but if some of you guys may think this is a bit unusual at first, well, the reason I'm doing this is because, well, if it's one of our new features in the sim and we can explore out of our cockpit, we can take a look at mountain and peaks. Imagine if you're up here, like you'd be hiked up here. So that's why I like to do it. It's really cool, and it makes the most of this feature. So, really cool stuff. This is an absolutely stunning peak. And if you look at the other side of it, you can see some of the cracks and ravines down from below. So we'll get back to the aircraft. And this is just what it looks like on drone cam from Mount Olympus. Oh, whoa. Careful. Pretty dangerous area here. One wrong move and you'd be crashing to the side of the mountain like Wile E. Coyote. So we're gonna go ahead and okay, we're off. And we're going. Woo! So we're gonna go cover our next place. So our next place is going to be Hurricane Ridge. Will be our next place we're going to be going over. Is Hurricane Ridge. Now, Hurricane Ridge, for you guys that don't know, this mountainous area here in the national park is about 18 miles away from Port Angeles. It's open to hiking, skiing, and snowboarding, and is one of the two most visited sites in the national park. At an elevation of 5,200 feet, Hurricane Ridge is a year-round destination. In summer, visitors come up for views of the Olympic Mountains, as well as for hiking. And during the winter months, Hurricane Ridge ski and snowboard area offers lift service, downhill skiing, and snowboarding. Of course, you could take a paved trail up through here, which is around 1.6 miles long one way with an elevation gain around 700 feet. It is not common to find snow on trails, even as late as July, of course. The visitor center here was destroyed by a fire in 2023. As a result, the area was temporarily closed for a month before it was opened with limited reentry. And finally, it was named Hurricane Ridge due to the unpredictable intense gales of winds, and the weather here is unpredictable. So visitors should be prepared for snow at all times at any time of the year. And this area receives around 400 inches of snowfall annually. Yes, 400 inches of snow. So this is a very intense area for snow. So yes, pretty cool area though. Lots of snow in this area. So we'll be flying over. We'll briefly fly over this area to the right. So we'll briefly fly over this area here to our right, and then we'll turn left into Hurricane Ridge. There we go. Just do some reordering of the slides. Got to reorder. So we'll be making our way over to here as well. So we'll turn left here to 328, and we'll make our way down to Hurricane Ridge. So we'll make our way to Hurricane Ridge, which is straight ahead of us right here. So there's Hurricane Ridge. So yeah, we got 2 more lanes after this one. Cove Rainforest and Ruby Beach. So yeah, we're just 79 nautical miles from our final stop at Kilo Uniform India Lima. So we got only 2 remaining stops left to go. If you guys are enjoying this content and want to support the channel, smash that follow button. We stream 2 days a week, though after I return home on the April 25th, we'll go to 3 days a week at 10 a.m. So So here's Hurricane Ridge, of course. This area was actually built around the 1950s to increase park visitation. That's why they built Hurricane Ridge Ski Resort to increase park visitation. So here it is, Hurricane Ridge is right over here. So this is Hurricane Ridge. Let me you guys. Yeah. So here we go. So. So here we go. Oh, great. Not my great. So we'll briefly look at Hurricane Ridge. So this is what it looks like. So this is Hurricane Ridge. Oh no! Typhon, no! Balls! Medic! He's hurt. You killed me, man! Oh, look at that. Hurricane Ridge. So yeah, look at the state of that, guys. That is just cool. You're playing with the mountains in the background. Pretty epic area here. I'm gonna get a drone shot. Pick this. That'll buff out. Yep. So we'll be doing on this beautiful trip here, but absolutely gorgeous though. The Olympic mountain range from here is absolutely stunning. So we're gonna go ahead and carry on with the next leg. We're actually gonna do this. We're gonna take off here and use the slopes to help us get take off. We'll take off from here. We'll fly over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So our next waypoint is where the Glens Canyon Dam was breached. If you guys remember from one of our slides with the dam restoration project, they had to redevelop this area in order to allow some of the salmon to make its way up to make its way into the Olympic National Park for the salmon and trout populations. So we'll see that down below. Yeah. To our ahead of us, to the other side of the mountain peak, there's Hurricane Hill, where we could have landed here as well. But yeah, the peaks here are just really cool. Is Port Angeles. Now, a little bit about Port Angeles, of course. Port Angeles is in northern Washington. Its population is 19,000. The most populous city in the Olympic Peninsula. It was actually designated, was dubbed Puerto de Nuestra Señora de los Angeles, the Port of Our Lady of Angels, by Francisco de Eliza in 1791. Though it's now been shortened to Port Angeles Harbor. But the most famous person that was born here was John Elway, who is a Pro Football Hall of Famer of the Broncos. He was born in Port Angeles. Other notable people also include Patrick Haggerty. You also have diplomat Robert Miller, U.S. Congressman Derek Kilmer, and U.S. Coast Guard Rear Admiral Harold G. Bradbury are some of the most famous people from Port Angeles, Washington. So this is the former dam that was here, but now it's been rebuilt, which is pretty cool. And now we'll get into Lake Crescent. So we'll make it our way to Lake Crescent. So really scenic area of the park. Yeah, you might cut that up for stream. Oh, I bet you probably would. I'm not surprised you guys would do that. Oh, and also one more thing, guys. For our next national park in the series, next Sunday's in the last national park before I leave, we'll be covering Kings Canyon National Park in California, which is basically part of the same system as Sequoia National Park, which we actually covered in the second stream of the series. So we'll be back in California once again for Kings Canyon. So should be some serious fun, of course. And then the first one we'll do coming back is, of course, Michigan's Isle Royale National Park in the Upper Peninsula. So So this here is Lake Crescent, by the way. Really beautiful area here, though. Lake Crescent is one of the more popular areas in the park for boating activities. Absolutely gorgeous scenery here, though. Once again, Olympic National Park does not disappoint. Oh, my data was unlimited. My data in my sim was unlimited. Yeah, I guess you have. I guess you have limited data on yours, Wheelboard Blackheart. Not surprised. So, but this is an absolutely breathtaking national park. This is a beautiful scenery here. We'll see what's in front of us. What a beautiful area. Just a gorgeous area here. Well, we're going to be heading to our next waypoint. This is Ho Rainforest. This is our next waypoint. Ho Rainforest is one of the largest temperate rainforests here in the country, located in the Olympic Peninsula of Western Washington. It encompasses 24 square miles of low elevation forest along the Ho River. And the rainforest receives an average of 140 inches of precipitation a year, among the rainiest places in the U.S. And it was formed thousands of years ago by glaciers and is the ancestral home of the Ho people, who are still around this area today. Within Olympic National Park, this park is protected from commercial exploitation. However, one of the protected parts of the rainforest includes the 1 square inch of silence, which is a 1 square inch monument to mark what deems to be the quietest place in the United States. And it was placed in 2005 as a demonstration in favor of noise control. So, pretty important part of the national park. But mainly we're going to be landing near the riverbed. So let's but one of the really, there's a lot of flora and fauna that live in this area, of course. And of course, we're going to go ahead and turn left at 82. In terms of flora and fauna, of course, this rainforest, by the way, is home to some really unique flora and fauna. In terms of flora, Sitka spruce in western hemlock are the dominant species here in the rainforest, and some can grow tremendous size, reaching over 300 feet high. You can also find Douglas fir and all that, and of course, this area is littered with moss lichens, which require cool, moist conditions found under the canopy of the old-growth forest. In terms of fauna, you can find native fauna such as the Pacific tree frog, northern spotted owl, bobcat, cougar, raccoon, Olympic black bear, Roosevelt elk, coyote, and black-tailed deer. Recently, naturalists have even been planning to reintroduce fishers to the forest and surrounding forest due to the expedited population in Washington. And the introduced Virginia opossums also making its way around the forest. So, really cool stuff, though. This is a really neat national forest. And like I said, it's a neat part of the landscape here. So we'll find a riverbed and we'll make our landing here at Ho Rainforest. So we'll be making our way through here soon. But yeah, we got one more bush lane site after this one, which is at Ruby Beach. We'll make one last bush lane site. We'll find somewhere on Ruby Beach. We'll make a landing nearby. We'll find a place at the beach. So you guys, we're just about 48 nautical miles from our last stop at Kilo Uniform India Lima. We're getting pretty close to that stop. So very much looking forward to this. I appreciate all you guys for sticking around for today's stream. I know it's been for all of us here. So here's, guys, the Ho River bed. So there's the hiking trails and all that. So this should be fun. So we'll actually go here, drop in altitude. So yeah, just doing it to try and lose altitude and such. Just trying to finally lose some altitude. We could lose altitude, so we're going to go ahead and make our way back to the land site. So we'll try and make a line. So here it is, guys, our next lane spot near Ho Rainforest. We found one right in the riverbed. perfect. This is the perfect bushland spot. Hey, that was a really nice landing. Look at that. That's a perfect landing. Right into the Hoh rainforest. So yeah, this right here, we're not far from the Hoh rainforest. We're just laying here, right here. So that is where the rainforest is at. Pretty cool. So we'll be staying here for just a second. So yeah. So all this stuff around here is the whole rainforest. All of it's covered here. I know the plants in the sim may not match what it is in the rainforest, but it's similar enough. And we're off. So we're gonna head over to Ruby Beach. We're gonna be our last leg is gonna be around 2,500 feet. So. So now we entered from the top of the banks, and now we're entering into the big valleys. To the valleys here, we're going to enter into Ruby Beach, which will be our last bushland site. So. So we have one last site left. Ruby Beach will be our last stop here for this morning stream. So here it is, guys. Ruby Beach, our last bush stop. Here it is. Ruby Beach. Look, this well-known beach is the northernmost of the southern beaches here at the coastal section of Olympic National Park, located Highway 101, just 27 miles south of the town of Forks. Like virtually all beaches on the northern coast, Ruby Beach has a tremendous amount of driftwood. It also has a notable number of sea stacks there, and the beach is so called because of the ruby-like crystals that are found in the beach sand. And of course, Destruction Island is about 4 miles southwest of the beach. And you can see the Destruction Island White House from the beach. But yeah, pretty cool area though, the little beach here. Neat area, of course. So pretty cool. Now, of course, one interesting thing though about Forks, Washington, funnily enough, Forks, if you guys aren't aware about it, was mainly fueled by timber of the 20th century. However, it became a tourist destination with Olympic National Park. But if you guys are aware about pop culture and stuff, you know Forks for a different reason. It's because this is where the Twilight series and films are all set in this town. So yes, any fans of the Twilight series has now known about Forks, Washington. So, pretty interesting stuff. So we're getting very close to Ruby Beach, and then once that, we'll turn left, we'll turn right, and we'll fall along the Pacific coastline. Or maybe we'll just fly around the Pacific coast. We're not going to do Bushling and Ruby Beach. We'll just fly around the Pacific coast for a bit and explore the coastline for a bit. So, yep, that's the vampire TV movie series. Yes, Twilight. That's right, Willor Blackheart. Twilight films were all filmed. It basically was a film saga. It was literally it was 5 films. 5 films in the movie series. Yes, it's true. So we'll follow along down the coast, and we'll descend to 15. I'm going to descend down to 1,500 feet. So fantastic. So yeah, we're about to reach the Pacific coast of Olympic National Park. Hey, Speed Pro's with us. Good to see you. Good to see you, Speed Pro. I hope you're doing well. We just made it. We're about to head to the Pacific coast. We'll follow the coastal part of the park along the coast. So here it is, guys, the Pacific coast. So this is our last part. So we'll go ahead and we'll turn right here very soon. Yeah, pretty cool stuff. So we'll go ahead and turn. So yeah, there is the Pacific coast of Olympic National Park, and there's Ruby Beach. So you can see the coast. So yeah, you can see the Olympic coast. Absolutely crazy coastlines here in this part of Washington. So yeah, we'll fall down the coast for the rest of the leg. We'll fall along here. Then we get to Rialto Beach, and then we'll get back to the airport. Hey, good to see you. From Romania. Hello there, Speed Pro. Oh, now, oh, I'm glad you like Tokyo, though, Speed Pro. Tokyo's a really cool city. Really neat city. Very historic, and of course, that city has basically everything. Um, um, so lots of really cool stuff. Japan has so many really cool cities: Tokyo, Nagoya, Osaka, Kobe, Kyoto. But there's also some really cool cities in the western part of the country. Hiroshima is a really neat city to learn about. Is Hiroshima? Hiroshima is a really neat area to learn. That's a really cool city. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Fukuoka is really interesting too. Fukuoka is a really neat city as well. Of course, Nagasaki is really cool. And of course, there's also Kagoshima, which has got the volcano next to it, which is really cool. So really cool stuff. Japan's really neat. So um, we could do a lot more stuff in Japan, of course. One of the really cool things, I know when we get back we have a third stream, and one of the stream things is going to be a variety stream, which we'll do a mix of GA. We'll do some bit of GA flying as well, but I also want to do some regional airliner stuff, mainly with regional flights. No super long streams, just do some regional flights across different regions. I thought that would be pretty cool to do. Plus, like I said, I don't have to worry about making them super long. So, but really, really cool. So, we're about to enter the Rialto Beach. To our left, so Rialto Beach is in this area, and then our airport. So there's Rialto Beach down over to our left. And our airport will come here very shortly. But so many really cool stuff. And yes, I may even visit Romania too. Who knows? I might do some flying in Romania for the variety stream. Maybe do some flights into Bucharest. Flying over the Carpathians and making our way to Bucharest. That would be pretty cool. So, but yeah, we got some really cool stuff planned. So, Rialto Beach is here. So we're going to go ahead and head to their airport. So that is the Pacific Coast. We're gonna head straight to the airport. So that's it, everyone. We basically are about done with this flight. We're gonna make our landing and we'll head on out. So thank you all so much, guys, for coming on this Sunday stream. This was an absolutely gorgeous park. Glad to have visited with you guys. So we'll raid there too. So we're going to go ahead, turn on autopilot, and we're going to make a landing here. We'll make it extra short landing. Very steep approach. Okay, not my greatest landing. But I can get it better. So we'll stop right here, guys. So thank you all so much for coming with me today and explored Olympic National Park. I hope you all have a great time with me. So we're gonna find someone to raid. So our streaming content will return back on Friday. We'll be in northern France. So we're going to raid someone new. Oh, I think I know the perfect guy. We'll raid Dryson. He's doing some GA activity in Laos, which is a really underrated country in Southeast Asia. So we'll be back on Friday and see you all soon. Take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your weekend. Goodbye, everyone.